and the struggle for Kenya's independence. The struggle for Kenya's independence was a long and arduous journey marked by the resilience, sacrifice, and unity of the Kenyan people. For decades, Kenya was under British colonial rule, which began in 1895 when the British declared the East Africa Protectorate. Over time, the colonial administration alienated the indigenous communities from their land, imposed taxes, and subjected them to forced labor, fueling resentment and resistance among the local population. One of the most significant causes of resistance was land alienation. The fertile highlands, home to the Kikuyu, Embu, and Meru communities, were confiscated by British settlers, leaving indigenous farmers landless. The British established a system that favored settlers, denying Africans ownership rights and relegating them to wage labor on the very land they once owned. This displacement sowed seeds of rebellion as communities began to organize against these injustices. Resistance initially took the form of petitions and peaceful protests. Leaders like Harry Thuku emerged, advocating for land rights and fair treatment. Thuku founded the East African Association, EAA, in 1921, a political organization that sought to challenge colonial policies. However, such movements were met with repression, and Thuku was arrested in 1922, sparking demonstrations that resulted in a violent crackdown by the colonial government. By the 1940s, frustrations boiled over into more radical forms of resistance. The Kenya African Union, KAU, led by figures such as Jomo Kenyatta, intensified calls for independence. Kenyatta and other leaders pushed for unity among Kenya's diverse ethnic groups to confront the colonial government. However, peaceful methods were slow to yield results, and some groups began to embrace armed resistance. The Mau Mau uprising, which began in the early 1950s, became the centerpiece of Kenya's struggle for freedom. The movement primarily drew its support from the Kikuyu community, but also included members from the Embu and Meru tribes. Mau Mau fighters waged guerrilla warfare against colonial forces, targeting British settlers and collaborators. The uprising was met with brutal repression, with the colonial government declaring a state of emergency in 1952. Thousands of Kenyans were detained, tortured, or killed during the conflict. Despite the violence, the Mau Mau movement succeeded in drawing global attention to Kenya's plight. The sacrifices of the freedom fighters inspired widespread support for the cause of independence. As international pressure mounted and the cost of maintaining colonial rule increased, the British government began to reconsider its position. Negotiations for independence began in the late 1950s, with leaders like Kenyatta, Oginga Odinga, and Tom Mboya at the forefront. In 1960, the British allowed for the formation of African political parties, leading to the creation of the Kenya African National Union, KANU. Kenyatta, who had been imprisoned for his alleged involvement in the Mau Mau uprising, was released in 1961 and became the face of Kenya's independence movement. On December 12, 1963, Kenya finally attained independence, with Jomo Kenyatta as its first prime minister. The following year, Kenya became a republic, with Kenyatta as its president. The journey to independence left an indelible mark on Kenya, shaping its national identity and instilling a sense of unity among its people. The struggle for independence remains a testament to the resilience and determination of Kenyans in the face of oppression. The sacrifices of those who fought for freedom are remembered as the foundation upon which the nation stands, inspiring generations to cherish and safeguard their hard-won sovereignty.